Greater Bengaluru Governance Bill 2024 was presented to the Karnataka Legislative Assembly on July 23rd. The bill proposes a three-tier governance structure for Bengaluru, consisting of a new body called the Greater Bengaluru Authority for coordinating and supervising development, ward committees to facilitate community participation, and 10 city corporations to ensure effective and responsive governance. Now, the GBA would be led by the Chief Minister and include Bengaluru's development, home, and urban development ministers among its 21 members. Despite its intentions, the bill has faced criticism from citizens and experts and has now been referred to a joint select committee of the Legislature for further review. This isn't the first attempt at such reforms. Previous governments from both the BJP and Congress have proposed similar measures, including increasing the number of wards from the current 198. However, there has been little tangible change in policy or ground level implementation. As Bengaluru rapidly expands, the challenges of urban management grow more complex, highlighting the urgent need for effective solutions. To gain insight into what this bill means for the city's residents, we spoke with Sandeep Anirudhan, founder of Citizens Agenda for Bengaluru. He provides a perspective on whether the proposed bill will address the city's issues or potentially create new ones. For joining us yet again, and we look forward to discussing the Greater Bengaluru Authority bill in depth this time. First,
hello Akshita, pleasure to be here.
Likewise. And firstly, we want to know what would be the structural changes that would come into place if the Greater Bengaluru Authority bill is passed and it's implemented.
Well, it's going to be a very crazy development because our constitution says that a city should have a government at the third tier. So what this proposes is below the first tier, which is the central government, then the second tier is the state government. You will have a third tier, which is an apex body called the Greater Bengaluru Authority. And then the fourth tier will have elected municipalities. So and then you'll have the ward committee layer and then the area sabha layer. So it fundamentally meddles with the prescription of the constitution in the 74th amendment, which says that the city ought to have a devolved, decentralized, unified city government elected, headed by a mayor. Instead, the government wants to have a body of parastatals and state government ministers and MLAs, I think, which will form a layer in between, which will have effective control over these cities' elected government. So basically, it will be a violation of the will of the people. Why have a city government if it is elected, if it does not have power over its domain and it has to report to a bunch of bureaucrats? It's fundamentally wrong, very wrong conceptualization. Whoever thought of this is out of his mind. And I don't know what else to say. I'm just saying it as it is.
So basically, it adds a third party in system who don't have any power and they report to bureaucrats. So obviously, there comes a problem with bureaucracy. That's the main fundamental problem with the bill that was there in the assembly.
Oh, there are two fundamental problems. One is, in its wisdom, the parliamentarians have drafted the 74th amendment, saying that a city requires
local government, like
a contiguous local government, which is elected, has effective power over that geography and demography. What this bill says is we'll have multiple city governments inside a city. So you'll have like some 5 or 10 different governments.
Operations that they were talking about.
It's going to lead to such a huge confusion. As it were, if you see the last 2 years, we've had 2 sets of delimitation exercises. First, the BJP government increased the number of wards from 198 to 243. Then the Congress came to power and they changed it to 225 wards. Do you know that till date, they have not been able to change the ward officials and the ward hierarchy and the flow of work? They're still following 198 wards. Why? Because it's very difficult to change these things. The processes, the hierarchies, the charts, operations, budgets, and everything. It's a mammoth exercise. And here, this government is behaving as if it's a joke to form 10 new city governments. It's going to be such a huge confusion that for the next 20 years, Bengaluru won't recover from it. We're going to be having mass confusion. Nothing will happen. No work will take place. It will be a complete mess. So it is absolutely clear that this government has not spent any time thinking about its consequences. It is as though this probably the Tuglakian move of our times. There's no better way to describe it.
Yeah, because we do understand that there are changes required in the BBMP, because at least since 2007, it's not functioning perfectly like it should have, because there are still the civic issues that continues to grow. And this was proposed to be a change for the BBMP, and which was supposed to be effective. But of course, it's, like you're
the
mentioning,
reason BBMP doesn't work properly is not due to the structure. Certainly not due to its size.
Yeah.
It's because there's lack of transparency, there's lack of accountability, and they are not following the 74th Amendment.
Yeah.
74th Amendment says the city government should be autonomous, devolved and decentralized, and unified. It says 18 services at least are listed in the 12th schedule, which have to be unified, which means the city should have only one government. Right now, there are 10 to 15 parastatals which compete with BBMP to run the city. That is where it's fundamentally flawed. It is not with the size of BBMP that there's a problem. The problem is we already have multiple governments.
Yeah.
So it's creating confusion. There is no...
When the department, the ownership doesn't come in, at least in the city.
Precisely.
Who owns exactly what, and it's always going round and round when
Precisely.
it comes to the problems in the city.
So this bill doesn't propose to resolve that, but it's creating a bigger problem. You're going to have 10 more competitors.
So there'll be more. Again, the same thing will continue, but it will be even worse.
It will be even worse because now you are creating compartments within the city, and by the time they figure out what the boundaries are, who is responsible for what and everything, I don't think the city will exist anymore. It will be dead.
That's a lot. Also, what we understand is that the Brand Bengaluru committee that had given the draft, the Greater Bengaluru Governance Bill, that was different from what has been tabled. Is that so? Do you think
it's not very different? I've seen both the drafts. I think in its essence, the Brand Bengaluru committee itself has committed a lot of grave crimes. They formulated this apex layer and the multiple corporations idea, which is the fundamental fault anyway. Then, of course, the politicians and bureaucrats have added some more masala, which makes it even worse. But I think the Brand Bengaluru committee has done a huge disservice to the city by even providing this basis for this mess. They should have simply told the government that there is an existing law which takes care of this. That's the 74th Amendment. You don't require... See, I mean, like if you have something that's already existing, which is perfect, why would you want to create another one? The 74th Amendment is the law. It is part of our constitution. And as long as we continue violating this constitution, the city will be a mess because we are not providing a city government, we are not providing governance, and we are not providing planning. The biggest problem with the city is that we don't have planning. For the last 6 to 7 decades, we have not planned the city. You know, cities like Singapore have master plans for 50 years. And we want to be a Singapore, but we don't want to do the groundwork. Will that work? So what we need to fix is this. The 74th Amendment addresses that as well. It says the planning authority for the city has to be the MPC, the Metropolitan Planning Committee. It has to do bottom-up planning for the city, create the master plan, the transport plan, etc. And it has to be in charge and it has to be autonomous. Now see, if you look at the Greater Bengaluru Authority bill, it robs the autonomy for everything. It says there will be a Metropolitan Planning Committee, but the chairman is the Chief Minister, and then you have the Bengaluru Development Minister and all of that. Same with the Greater Bengaluru Authority also, it will have the Chief Minister. Now, the very idea, the 74th Amendment clearly says that there are things on which the city government and the Metropolitan Planning Committee have to take permission of the state government. Now tell me, when the chairman of this, the bodies are themselves the chief minister of the state government, how will it report to the state government? It's creating a contradiction. So at multiple ways, this is flawed. They have not thought this through. They don't understand process. They don't understand structure. And I think at the bottom of all of this is bad intent. There is no intent to actually solve the city's problem. This is another branding activity. That's a problem. I think that is the only place where they have lived up to the title of that committee, because they treat this as a branding exercise. Branding is superficial. We don't want branding. We want constitutionality. We want rule of law. If the people at the top, if the state government, the ministers are violating the constitution, what example are they setting for the rest of the city? They are becoming lawbreakers. They're supposed to be lawmakers. And if they can't follow the constitution, they should resign. They should not be sitting there and meddling with the constitution, violating it. Tomorrow, somebody like you and me can go to the court and we can contest this, saying it's not compliant with 74th Amendment, and the whole thing will come to an paralysis. Why do they do this? Why do they set it up for failure? The same thing happened with the 2031 RMP also. It was actually a much better plan than the existing the master plan that we are following now, which is the RMP 2015. But quite a few NGOs went and challenged it in court, saying it has not followed due process. What is the due process they're supposed to follow? The Metropolitan Planning Committee has to issue the order for the master plan under the 74th Amendment. Since they haven't complied with it, that got cancelled. Now the government keeps repeating the same mistake. What does it show about them? That they don't understand laws, that they don't understand, at least learn from experience. And why should the citizens bear the brunt for all of this? We have elected them to go out there and serve us. We have not elected them to keep causing trouble for us. It is very unfortunate that our elected public servants don't understand what their job is. This is what it clearly shows.
So are you saying that the main thing, if it follows the multiple corporations thing, it's going to fail? Something that we have seen in Delhi's case also, that one corporation was able to do well, but the other two failed miserably, and there was a lot of problem there in the city because of that. Will Bangalore also have the same fate? If
No, even in Delhi, I don't know how one of them did well. What is the parameter for doing well? Right. Now, in Delhi's case, at least they are getting one thing right. They build a good master plan for the city and they follow it thoroughly. Every as and when the master plan expires, they build a new master plan and have it going. So at least at a fundamental level, they are set up for a general framework in which the city develops, and not much can go wrong in terms of implementation. The problem with Bangalore is we don't have a master plan. So what happens, regardless of whether you have one city government or 10 city governments, one thing is for sure, they all fail because there is no master plan. So the planning will be overlooked. We will have unplanned development, and unplanned development is setting up a city to fail. And none less than the Supreme Court pointed this out in 2023 January, that Bengaluru is a template for urban ruin due to unplanned development. This is exactly what they said. And they wrote a missive to all the chief secretaries of every state in India not to do this. Don't follow Bengaluru. Was there. And now we are making it worse. As it is, Bengaluru is an example for urban ruin. We are going to become a bigger example for what not to do.
Makes sense. Also, so what would be the ideal solution? I mean, I think the first step would be to create a master plan. And what should they really, at this point, at least when we are already having a lack of resources and there are added problems to it than we had, let's say, a few years ago, what would be the solution then when they're thinking of revamping something like this?
No, see, essentially what a city requires is a proper, firstly, a proper culture. Secondly, it has to have institution building. And thirdly, of course, it needs the resources. But without the culture and without the institution building, and capacity building, how will we bring about results, right? And our governments are guilty of having ignored this over decades. The 74th Amendment was passed in 1992. It's 32 years since it has been passed into law. Does any elected government have an excuse for not following the Constitution? Every single chief minister from 1992 up to now can actually, I think we can file a case against them in the Constitutional Court for being in contempt of the Constitution. Why should they do that? Then why have laws? The question is this. If you have laws, you have legal frameworks and all kinds of frameworks that are thought up. If they're not being followed, what's the use of having them? So the institutions that the city requires is primarily a planning authority. That's what I said. You need to have master planning, but who will do it? You need capacity building. As per the 74th Amendment, you're supposed to have an elected metropolitan planning committee consisting of elected members. We don't even have elections to our local bodies. So now we don't have the people who are supposed to sit on the MPC. So we need to get our act right on all of this. Follow the Constitution. So simple. Is that very difficult to understand? I'm sure you understand it. This is the law that is written in the Constitution. Follow it. I understand it. This is what is written in the Constitution. Follow it. Now tell me, what excuse do all our legislators whom we have elected? We trust the educated, literate, and can understand. What excuse do they have for not understanding what is written in the law? Is there any excuse for that? So, if they understand, then they don't have to do this entire drama and this branding and all this complicated things. Just follow the law. Merge. The law clearly says have a metropolitan planning committee, have master plans. That will solve the biggest problem Bengaluru has, which is unplanned development. It will bring about some semblance of order. Second, the law clearly says all services have to be unified. So get rid of all of these parastatals, merge them into the city government and make it completely autonomous. Have a mayor in council, have a good 4-year or 5-year term for the mayor. Then you'll have a properly empowered city government. And it has to be decentralized and devolved. Even under the existing laws, Bbmp already has good amount of decentralization and devolution, because now you have 8 zones, you have zonal commissioners, you already have ward committees, although they have to be implemented fully. All that we have to set up is area sabhas, and we need to have area planning committees and maybe ward planning committees for the planning exercise. And we need to empower these. We need to employ a lot of planners, and we are churning out thousands of planners every year. But the problem is our governments don't use them. Now we have to hire them. Maybe every ward or every area needs at least a part-time planner involved. That way they can empower the citizens who want to do the planning locally, and then these have to be merged into the larger master plan. This is the right way to go. It's so simple. Is it very complicated? Does it sound complicated to you?
Not really.
Why is it so complicated for a legislator?
On paper, at least we know that 74th Amendment is there on paper, and if like what you're saying is just follow that, and of course add a bit of here and there as per the requirements of the
you don't even need that. Let me ask you, if I have a car that's working perfectly, why would I want to meddle with it?
Makes sense. So the solution would be to implement the 74th Amendment.
Exactly.
Short. Also, let's get to a bit of politics of this bill now. First, do you think that the Greater Bengaluru Authority bill, was it passed to delay the BBMP elections, which hasn't been conducted since 2020?
Absolutely. It's one of the primary reasons, because they think they can find one more excuse to delay. Like I told you, if what they have created, this monster of a bill, if they try to implement it, Bengaluru will go into paralysis for the next 5, 10, maybe 20 years. Why would they want to do that kind of a paralysis? Because then, see, they don't have to deal with the city government. It's a very colonial thing. I'm telling you, this Greater Bengaluru Authority bill is something that a Queen Victoria or King George would be proud of, because it's an example of colonial thinking. This is how the state government wants to prevent self-rule or Swaraj for a city. The 74th Amendment is the equivalent of a Panchayati Raj, right, for the urban local body. So they don't want to devolve. They don't want to give power to the citizens. This is their primary objective. That's why they stop the elections. That's why they keep delaying it. Also, they don't want to share power with another level, which is the corporators. Now, why do they want to do all of this? I mean, ideally, I'm assuming a well-intentioned politician would want to do what is best in terms of governance, in terms of planning. If you're, and you know that not having this elections is actually hurting the city, it's harming the city. The city is crumbling in front of our eyes. So why would politicians not want to do this? There's only one reason. Politics is seen as a route to illegal riches. The political economy of Bengaluru is larger than the actual economy. And what is this political economy? It's basically illicit money being made out of violations. So allow illegal buildings, allow illegal layouts, all kinds of encroachments and illegal activities, and bribes are paid to do this. This money is so huge that all the officials are milking the system this way, and they have to give a cut to the politicians. So the politicians don't want another layer, which means between the officials and politicians, they don't want a corporator layer. That's the only objective for delaying elections, meddling with the 74th Amendment, or not allowing the 74th Amendment to happen. In fact, if 74th Amendment happens, the political economy will reduce because a lot of citizens will be empowered at ward committee level and area sabha levels. The more involvement you have of citizens, the less opportunities there are for bureaucrats and politicians to make money out of the system. The less you'll have illegalities, less you'll have, because there'll be a lot of oversight. Now, they don't want that oversight. And the second thing is the Section 4 of RTI Act very clearly says that all public information has to be out in the public domain. Right now, it is not. In fact, every website should have, every authority should have website and give out public information. It is not. That is another violation of the of our laws. Now, over and above all of this, even if this bill, the bill itself, is a violation of the RTI Section 4, because anything that is of any grave impact or importance to the public have to be placed in the public domain before a bill is introduced or passed into law. So you look at this, the intent is hugely missing. Good intent. Everything about the manner the bill has been drafted, the way it has been trying to be pushed surreptitiously, and now they formed a standing committee. But standing committee is no guarantee that, you're still bringing together a lot of politicians, and politicians from Bengaluru just have ulterior motives, unfortunately, because our political culture is such that there is very little cleanliness left in the system, right? So we don't trust them to do the best for our city or for the country. So what is the alternative way? You see a lot of national bills, they have a policy of pre-legislative consultation.
Yeah.
Since the policy exists, at least a lot of bills go through that. Like the NEP went through that. There is very broad-based public consultation. Consultation is taken, and it is transparently put out as to what suggestions have been taken, what have not been taken, why it has been accepted, why it has been rejected, very transparently. So if the central government can do that, can't the state government do it? And this is such an important bill. It's about the governance of the city. It's about the planning of the city. This is very important for all of us. They should and must hold a public consultation that's transparent, that's robust. Every single clause has to be examined. They have to take in new recommendations of public. Allow us to do it because we know what's best for our city. A lot of citizens here have far more knowledge, far more capacity to think. A lot of Bengalurians have a hugely educated citizenry. Many of them have traveled the world. They can bring in ideas from all over. So this will benefit the process. This will benefit the process of lawmaking, which we can bring in tremendous ideas. So why does the government want to ignore that? Why isn't it willing to utilize it? A public consultation is where it should start. The way they're going about it is absolutely wrong. The government should withdraw it. They should withdraw it immediately. They should cancel this process. If they want to really reform Bengaluru's governance, the place to start is with a broad-based, wide-ranging public consultation. Nothing less is acceptable.
Also, one more thing, one of the criticisms that the opposition BJP had pointed, that they said that the bill will lead to more non-Karnataka mayors, and especially in the areas where the migrant population is more, and especially considering the sensitivity of the issue right now, where there is a lot of uh, rift in terms of the identity of being a Karnataka. Do you think that would turn out to be true, or is it just a political gimmick that's being created by the opposition at this point?
No, so now if you go down this road, I don't understand how that's a valid argument. Yes, structurally it's a mess. You're going to have 20 mayors in a city, the city will is doomed. Okay, there's no question about that. But are we going to look at ethnicity and language of every citizen in the city? Then how can we have bureaucrats?
Mhm.
Almost all the bureaucrats in a city are from across the country. If they can be chiefs of departments, why not allow anybody from anywhere, as long as they are good citizens of the city, to contest elections? Maybe you have a stipulation that they have to learn the language. Just as we do with bureaucrats, we stipulate that they learn the state language and stuff like that. If somebody has to stand for elections, we can stipulate that they should have a certain amount of proficiency in the state
Right.
language. That is probably acceptable. Now, also acceptable is that the city, see, uh, whether people like it or not, a geography has its limits. It can only take so much load. Right now, Bengaluru has breached all its ecological limits and
Limit, yeah.
biological limits. This can only spell doom because, see, we already have a water shortage.
Hmm.
I think the
Our
shortage.
traffic roads are not equipping us.
Beg your pardon?
Our traffic, our roads are not being able to bear the
No, that's a
burden, at
different
least.
thing. The reason our roads are choked is because we don't have public transport, which means we don't have mass transit facilities.
Hmm.
Why we don't have that is because we've never had master plan.
Yeah.
Even the 2031 RMP has an excellent transport plan. It has factored in metro, suburban rail, and all of that. If we were to follow that, we would build mass transit. But what does the city do? Not the city. Basically, the Karnataka state government keeps meddling with the city, right? What does it do? It wants to build one tunnel road. That is not part of a plan. It wants to build some flyover somewhere here and there. It doesn't solve a problem because they're trying to build capacity for roads. And if everybody in the city owns a vehicle, obviously there won't be space on the road. You look at Tokyo. Tokyo has about 3.5 crore population. It only has 50,000 private vehicles or less. I think about 30,000 private vehicles. Why? Everybody uses suburban rail and metro over there. It's barely 8% of the population that has private vehicles there. Bengaluru is exactly the opposite. We only have about 1.5 crore people, but we have 1.5 crore vehicles on the road. That's almost 100% private ownership of vehicles. Where is 100% private vehicle ownership and where is 8% private vehicle ownership? Tokyo, mind you, it's a it's the capital of Japan, right? And they sell cars to the entire world, but their capital has no cars. Who's smarter? So we should stop being consumers of all these ideas from the West. We are becoming such consumers that we are not doing anything useful for ourselves. We're not using uh, uh, our brains. That is why we end up in situations where we haven't planned our city. We haven't provided mass transit infrastructure. That's why the roads are choked. I'm just giving a specific example. Also, I'm telling you why it has happened. Why? Because we've never had planning. If we had followed the constitution, if we had a metropolitan planning committee, if we had the master plan, we would not have reached this situation because about 10, 20 years back, we would have had a suburban rail. 20 years back, we would have had a better, say, probably a metro system. We would have had many more options, maybe a BRTS and all of those. Why didn't all of this happen? Because we never had a master plan and we just had the state politicians poking their nose everywhere and not allowing the city to equip itself with what it is, what it requires. The city never had autonomy, and now they're scheming again to prevent it from having autonomy forever. So these problems will keep compounding.
So just to put into context, the best solution would be right now to have a good master plan by following the 74th Amendment and making sure that it's implemented in actually in the place, and that would help us to solve the problems of the city that we have right now. Is that
Yeah, but
correct?
the point is that is the outcome. What we need is
Yeah,
to build the institution. Build the institution the 74th Amendment has prescribed,
put it in
which is
place.
the
Yeah.
Metropolitan Planning Committee and the unified, decentralized, devolved city government. This is all that the city requires. These two things, they're very simple, doable, if the state government has the right intent. But right now it's behaving like a colonial system which doesn't want to give up power, you know.
Yeah.
It's like how the
Also,
British didn't want to give up India.
just to put this in place now, can you help us understand that how would it impact the citizen? Like if you could take one example, and for somebody who, let's say, is not so politically aware or doesn't want to get into all these things, how is it going to impact that person? Let's say person A or person B or me living in Bengaluru. If this GBA is passed, what would that mean for them? If you could just give us an example so we can end it with that question.
My own visualization is this. You suddenly have all these multiple corporations, and then you have to redraw everything, the administrative functions, the boundaries, allocation of officials, and all of that. The city will simply go into paralysis for another 5 to 10 years minimum. Okay, by the time they get around to then electing ward committees, area sabhas, it'll take forever. So meanwhile, what Bengaluru requires now, because it's crying out, it already requires a master plan that's due 20 years back or 30 years back. We don't have one. Which means the master planning will get delayed further. Meanwhile, the administration already Bengaluru suffers from very poor governance. All kinds of violations are happening. Laws are not followed. Our basic maintenance, infrastructure work are all suffering, and we are not able to address a whole lot of basic issues. Right now, the ability to do that will get worse because there's going to be this huge period of paralysis and confusion and people figuring out who does what, and then we are not getting rid of the parastatals. And again, putting all these parastatals at the top will increase corruption because ideally bureaucrats have to report to politicians. There's a reason why the constitution says that, because power without accountability leads to absolute corruption. And if you have these people sitting on top, just imagine what will happen. So corruption will increase. The city's governance will reduce, which means if you think Bengaluru is a mess today, if this is passed, it will be a horrible mess tomorrow. And it will take a long time for it to recover because Bengaluru is already splitting at its seams. It's already crumbling. We've lost almost 95 to 97% of our green cover. We've lost 90% plus of our wetlands. We've concretized already to 95%. We have had the worst heat waves. We are going through the worst water crisis, and all these climate change impact and everything. This is a very bad time to do this to the city because the problems compounded will be so horrible that I think the city will just collapse and people will have to migrate out of here. That is the only possibility I see if this government goes around doing such irresponsible things.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing the insight with
Thanks
us.
for having me.
Yeah, thank you.